This is Extra Paycheck Podcast, episode number 11.
There is something beautiful in every situation, every single situation.
You're listening to Extra Paycheck Podcast, where you will learn how to build and grow your own successful online business. Now, here's your host, Alex Soul.
Welcome to yet another episode of Extra Paycheck Podcast. This is episode number 11, and today I've got a really awesome guest on the show. His name is Marc Angelo Coppola. He is a superhero engineer, inspiring entrepreneur, and a simply awesome person. Enjoy today's episode. Hey Marc, welcome to Extra Paycheck Podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Before we begin with all the questions that I have for you, let's start with you explaining a little bit more about yourself and about what exactly is that you do.
Sure. So, that's the complicated question, and because at this point, I literally run 4 social enterprises, and I say social enterprises because everything that I do is kind of in light of improving society, bettering the world, building a more sustainable world, and just kind of helping people, right? And so what I would like to say that I do in a general sense is I like to help people and I like to help the planet, and I want to see all of this thrive in harmony. And what that manifests itself like is in a couple of different formats. So the first format, or I guess the first company that I had started a little while ago, a couple of years ago, was a marketing company. And I went to school for, marketing and entrepreneurship. I actually had started in finance and accounting and hated it. And I actually hated school, to be honest. I felt like I was learning nothing. We were making all these business plans for nothing. We were learning like silly things that made no sense. So what I did is I actually took it upon myself to go to my own school, and my own school was watching documentaries. And I spent an entire year, basically the last year of university, watching a documentary a week. And as I watched these documentaries, I started to realize that there was a lot of problems in the world, and there was many things that were coming up, and I just felt really compelled to be a part of the solution. And I knew that the first thing that we needed to do to be a part of the solution is that more people needed to know about the problems, and more people needed to also know about the solutions. So I started a marketing company, not knowing where I was going to go. Started off in events, ended up doing video and photo and learning web design. And we assembled essentially a team of A to Z online presence marketing firm. Like we were basically a digital media marketing firm. And but only for companies that I truly believed in. I didn't want to do kind of work for anybody, you know what I mean? And slowly but surely that kind of started to evolve. And we got good, and the team got bigger, and then we got more clients, and things started happening. And with that, I ended up starting something called the Valhalla Movement. And one of these documentaries, I was learning about climate change and all these crazy things, and I decided to buy a 60-acre piece of land, not far from downtown Montreal, 20 minutes away from downtown Montreal. Walk right into the middle of it, plant a tree, and then be like, okay, now what are we gonna do? And the Valhalla Movement now is a movement that is looking to make sustainability mainstream. And what I mean by that is we're looking to kind of let people realize that their actions have consequences on the planet, and we got to do that in a way that makes it sexy. We can't just yell at people in the same way that they put like ugly pictures on cigarette packets. That doesn't make the cigarette smoker want to stop. It just makes them not want to look at the packet. Okay, exactly. It doesn't give them the solution. It's just telling them what you're doing is a problem. And so we felt the exact same way. And instead of just talking about the solutions and using the media company that we had started to just talk about the solutions, we wanted to walk. We wanted to do the solutions. And so we're building a sustainability learning center right here in Montreal, right on that 60-acre piece of land, and transforming it into an eco-paradise, essentially. The third company that kind of came out of that is, well, once you start just thinking about building a sustainability learning center, you're like, well, okay, well, what are we going to build? What does that mean? And so ended up discussing, and we ended up doing some work with a group of architects and engineers. And I decided that I was going to partner with them, and their name is Lef, and their phenomenal reputation here for green architecture in this city. So we decided we're going to design our very own eco buildings that are affordable, buildable anywhere in the world in 30 days, that meet all the deep green standards, like literally could be off grid if you really wanted it to, but they don't have to be. And at the same time are cheaper and or the same price as conventional construction. So you're talking about getting an off-grid passive house, a house that like kind of really helps regulate the temperature in and of itself, even in the cold Canadian winters, versus the regular house for the exact same price, and meeting the aesthetics of two people, the aesthetics of moms, because moms make decisions in families, and the aesthetics of the mayor of any town USA. Right? Because if a mayor doesn't want to see this kind of development happen in their town or in their county, then it's not going to really happen. So we need to have both those people understand that this is a better option. And it's a better option not just because of like it's better for the planet. We need to make it a better option across the board. So that's the third kind of organization. And then the last one is kind of maybe more relevant to yourself and your audience, is something called Superhero Academy. So as I started doing this, as I started realizing, all of these different things, what I realized is what had empowered me and it empowered the group of people that, amazing superheroes that surround me, was that knowledge, right? We were all learning about, number one, the problem, but number two, the solutions. And many, 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 many people are out there who want to do good, who want to help people, quote unquote, and don't know where to start. And so I decided that I was going to build an online school for everyday superheroes, where we run webinars, pre-recorded classes, some live events, kind of in a tiered system for everyone from, we put out free stuff like the podcast and blogs and stuff, but we also are putting out kind of, the starter kit stuff, the be your own hero stuff, if you will, and then ramping up into the complexities that is entrepreneurship as we go. So that's a whole new business, and it's something that fairly recent in my life in terms of the last couple of years. But it's all these four kind of are thriving and coming together. So they're all surrounding education and they're all surrounding action.
Awesome. Thanks for answering that. And I wasn't sure which question to ask you about, either Valhalla or Superhero Academy.
Sure.
Because both are like super inspiring and very interesting projects.
Whichever one you want to.
Well, that's why I'm happy that you actually spoke about both of them and you gave some ideas to people to check both of them out. Okay, so the question now is, how did you actually jump into the entrepreneurship? Why didn't you just get a job like you're supposed to, like we're told to?
Yeah. For me, entrepreneurship actually started before I graduated school. So I actually ended up buying an indoor skate park at 18 years old. And my goal, it is a crazy story, but my goal was, I had an idea, and this idea kind of came to me, number one, because I was watching tons of documentaries, and number two, because I was a guy who went to bars and clubs from time to time when I was younger, and I also used to smoke a lot of weed. It sounds crazy, but I would smoke a lot of weed in my buddies' cars. And because my parents didn't know at the time that I had smoked weed, and it was like a taboo thing, we had nowhere to go. Okay. And we were always like, I live on the South Shore, so suburbia. And at night when you're smoking weed and you get hungry, the munchies, I had nowhere to eat other than like McDonald's. And I hate that. And that, like, at the time it didn't bother me so much as it does today. I won't eat it today. But the reality is that at that moment, I was like, what if there was a place where, imagine it was like my own apartment building and all my friends could live in this apartment building. And what would I put in this building that would be like really communal, like a party space or a lounge or an office, like a co-working space? What can I put, like maybe like pool tables or foosball tables? And I started having this idea and I was like, wow, this is a really great idea. What if I actually did this? What if I bought an apartment building? And long story short, I was actually looking for the apartment building, and I ended up walking into the skate park called South Park Skate Park, which is now known as Spin at Zistrand, and here in Montreal. And there's this massive space on the upstairs, and I was just like, wow, this could be perfect to host like a party.
Yeah.
right? Like a Super Bowl party. And I wanted to do like, here in Canada, we don't have keggers. So I was like, well, let's do a keg party with giant Subway subs. And I was like, it'll be great. It'll be fun. And lo and behold, the skate park was about to fail. And they had a partner who had 51% and he wanted to out. And 30 days after I walked into the skate park, I was a 50% owner of it. It sounds freaking insane, but all we did was take over the old loan. Okay, I put in a lot of my own money, and I got other people like my brother and father to help chip in a little bit, and then obviously the remaining partners. So I had 50%, but I had 4 other partners that had the other 50%. We all chipped in money, and we took the skate park and we turned it around. So people ask me, well, what made you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? What started that? Well, the first thing is I knew I didn't want a 9-to-5. I knew that I didn't want a boss. And I'm sure everybody out there who wants to be an entrepreneur is like feeling and nodding their head and being like, yeah, fuck the boss. And the second thing I knew is I knew I wanted to do what I was passionate about, not just whatever needed to happen that some other person needed me to do. And at the time, what I was passionate about was smoking weed, hanging out with my friends. And I wanted a place to do that better. And I like food and stuff too. So all I did is I had an idea, but instead of taking this idea, and this is what sets apart an entrepreneur and the person who's not an entrepreneur just yet, because they still can be, because you can make that decision at any moment. But is that I took an idea and then I pursued it. I took the idea, I researched it, and then I made a business plan, or I started looking into it. And then I started to realize, like, hey, can I do this? How can I do this? And it's not easy to take that leap and say, you know what, I'm going to do this, but that's where that inspiration came for me. It was literally out of, this is something I want, so why not build it? And the same applies now to Valhalla and all these other things. I want a sustainability learning center. I want an education center. I want a place where I can congregate with my friends and we can practice everything from permaculture and installing solar panels to yoga and making beautiful websites and great videos to inspire people, or making documentaries or whatever. Essentially, it's almost selfish of me because I'm building this for me. But at the same exact time, I understand that this is an enormous contribution to the community.
Yeah.
I don't see park spaces when I walk around town as separate from my own community or my own land. This is our land, and wherever you live in the world, whoever's listening, wherever you live, that all those public spaces to some degree, that's your territory. So treat it like it is.
Totally. And well, financially wise, we pay for those territories as well as taxpayers. So they are our territories.
They 100% are, yeah.
Okay, so let's move back to the Superhero Academy. I'd like you to elaborate on that. What exactly is that you do? And let's say an entrepreneur stumbles upon Superhero Academy.
Yeah.
What kind of value they could find in that, and how can they use it for growing their business?
Absolutely. So many entrepreneurs are out there, or many what I would even call wantrepreneurs are out there, right? People who are just on the cusp of wanting to be an entrepreneur. They know they don't want a boss. They kind of have an idea, or maybe they have an idea, but they just don't know where to go. Okay. And then there's entrepreneurs who are running their idea, but then they need help scaling and going to the next level. And like I said, I've been an entrepreneur since I'm 18. I'm 26 now, going on 27. I've been around the block, okay? And I'm not to say that I know everything about entrepreneurship, but I've made many mistakes. And I've had many successes too, right? And from all of those successes, and especially from the mistakes, I've learned a whole lot. And I've done a whole lot of things online, building websites that now have thousands and thousands of visitors every day and every month. I now advise major brands and major websites as well that have over 50 million visitors a month at this point. So I've kind of gotten to the point personally where I'm kind of on the pulse of what's going on in some of these different spaces. And a lot of entrepreneurs and wantrepreneurs, they need guidance in the same way that when I was starting, I needed guidance. The way I see it is that even Olympians have coaches. Even world-class soccer players or football players have coaches. Okay?
Always.
A coach is there to keep you accountable. A coach is there to push your limits. A coach is there to make you take risks that you might not have taken. A coach is there to expand your boundaries. And if these people had coaches, then I realized maybe I should have a coach. Maybe somebody should keep me accountable. And so I ended up hiring my buddy, Phil Droulet, who is literally one of my best friends. And I just hired him because I wanted somebody to keep me accountable. And he was really, really, really good at that. Mm-hmm. And I started to realize the importance of what that was doing for me and my businesses. And I decided, what if I did this for everyday superheroes? What if I did this not just for entrepreneurs, because yeah, it's important, the person who wants to build the next app, that's cool. But the person who wants to build something that really is going to impact the planet, really going to impact society, really going to tackle a major societal issue. Those are the people I really, really, really want to work with. And because I know the importance of as entrepreneurs really being the leaders in society that are going to save the planet. Okay. I really believe that entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs have a huge role in being true everyday superheroes. And so if they, want to step up into something and if I can help them, I will. And so that's why I've built these Be Your Own Hero classes. There's some pre-recorded classes that are launching out shortly. I already did them, but now they're launching out as pre-recorded very, very soon. And then higher tier, and then some in-person stuff and some private coaching and all that kind of consulting, because people need help. They have these major ideas. They're running their business, and they're like, oh, I need help, like taking it to the next level. I need help going from like making $50,000 a year, and I'm happy, I'm doing my own thing, but I'm still not making as much, to like making $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of key shifts. It sounds crazy. There's a couple of little things that you can do that change that, and that happened to me. I went through that experience where I was making I'm a six-figure salary, and I was like, oh, I make a six-figure salary. Now I'm going out to a way higher six-figure salary. And only because I changed a couple of things in my mindset, and only because I was being held accountable by somebody else. So I realized that if I can help people learn some of the basics from, the entrepreneur space to excel into the spaces where they make more later, and they take bigger and bolder steps later, that they will be empowered to be a better entrepreneur, and they will find ways to hone in on their superpowers and on their skills, and make sure to not be doing all the other things, right? Because many entrepreneurs also fall victim of being solopreneurs, right? Where they're doing everything, start to finish. I'm going to run the website. I'm going to do all the updates. I'm going to run the social media. I'm going to send out all the newsletters. I'm going to do all the sales calls. I'm going to do all the product fulfillment stuff. I'm going to run the podcast and edit it and post it online. I'm going to do all the notes. I'm going to do this online launch, everything. I'm going to do my own accounting. It's like, well, wait a second here. You're diluting your power. What do you really, 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 really want to do? I mean, of course, you're going to do some things that you don't want to do completely, but all those other things, there are ways that you can kind of systematize those. There are ways that you can move those into a team of people as well, so that you are focusing on what you do best. And that's where your business is going to scale the most. So there's numerous layers of complexity to being an entrepreneur, and it's tough. It's a tough job. You don't work a 9 to 5, you work a 9 to 9, right? Because being an entrepreneur, your business is your life. There's a gray zone that happens in between that. And I think the other thing that ends up happening, and this very much happened to me, is I get caught up. I run 4 companies. I get caught up in wanting to do the next thing, and going through the endless list of to-dos. And it never ends, right? And you're never going to get to the end of the to-do list. Because why? Because in the same way that happiness isn't a destination, it's a way of travel. The reality is that every time you finish one to-do, you just make the yardstick go further. You're like, oh, I finished this, now I have room for that. You always want to achieve more. There's a reason why millionaires turn into billionaires. It's because they're like, oh, let me do more. And then billionaires are like, oh, I wish I was a trillionaire. And then they want to do more. It sounds crazy, but we're driven by purpose, not by just the success that comes of it.
Yeah.
Right. So allowing people to remember that life is being lived here too. And then this happened for me. I was losing touch with my social circles. My social circles became my business. And I was just talking to the people who I work with all the time, or I was talking to potential clients or whatever it was. And that's great and it worked out, but it was leading me to be, to burn out a little bit. And so I realized, I asked myself the question fairly regularly, what would Batman do? And I started to, this is something that has been recurring in my life for a while. So I was like, why don't I create Superhero Academy? Why don't I build a school for superheroes, social entrepreneurs who want to change the world, who are going to be the leaders that are going to affect and save our planet in many, many different ways, and help them be at their peak performance, help them really kind of focus on their superpowers and not on all superpowers, and then help them also enjoy the ride while they're doing it and not just be in this like saving the damsel in distress kind of mode all the time.
Yeah.
Or saving the planet kind of mode all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I get it totally. I often fall into these traps as well. And, it's hard to catch yourself doing that because, like you said, you finish something and there's always something else. And you're like, well, it's just going to take half an hour, let's say. Or it'll just take me 2 hours to write this really good article.
Yeah.
Or, and yeah, it's hard to stop doing that. And actually, it's hard to kind of find a good balance. If you're a real entrepreneur who's really excited about what you're doing, I find that it's really hard to find a balance between that life and work.
100%.
Yeah, because, you do want to achieve more and faster. And especially when you start seeing results coming in, you're like, oh my God, I should keep doing that like a lot more.
Yeah.
Because it brings results.
We're crack addicts. We're literally addicted to efficiency and success. We are. And because, like you said, you literally just said exactly what a gambler would say. Especially when you win that one time, then you continue to gamble because you think you're on a hot streak. Well, it's the exact same thing. We're in that mindset where we're getting a small dose of this drug, which we like to call efficiency sometimes or success sometimes. And then we get so caught up in just doing more and more and more and more of that. But the problem is sometimes is that we're measuring success in the wrong things. Okay. And not all of us, like not all the time. I'm not, measuring success in dollars is fine in many scenarios, but sometimes we have to realize that there has to be a cutoff. Like if today at 5, I say I'm going to stop and I'm going to, no matter how much I got done, I'm going to stop and I'm going to relax. Or I'm going to go hang out with some friends. You got to do that. And not to say to not be flexible, like, okay, you're in the middle of something, you finish at 5:15 instead, of course. But the idea of literally scheduling fun, I have to schedule fun. Like I have to literally build it into my, like, yeah, people see my calendar. They're like, oh, do you have a time for some call with me? And I bust out my calendar and maybe they get a glimpse of it. And they're like, oh my God, you have like fun blocks in your calendar? And I'm like, yeah, like I have to. I literally have to, because if I don't, I won't go to the gym and work out. If I don't, I won't take the time to go call up a friend and or go rock climbing or whatever. Like I won't take that time. And if and that's an important step to do not give up your fun. Like I don't care how much success you're going to have, how much money you have. If you're not having fun doing it, if you're not maintaining relationships, what is life? Is it about how when you die, it doesn't matter how much is in your bank account. Okay, it just matters whether or not you have regrets, whether or not you're going to ask yourself the biggest word in the English language, which is what if. The if word to me is the biggest word, because it's the word of all other possibilities that we could have done. And I don't like to leave anything to possibilities. I'd like to create a better balance between, yes, efficiency, work, don't get me wrong, I love it, but at the same time, a lot of fun. And actually, when you're having fun, and by having more fun, you tend to get really great ideas and you tend to re-energize and actually do your work better. I've noticed that more fun correlates to better work and better results, period. Because you're a happier person. And that goes so far in any sales situation or in any situation, period. Meeting somebody, networking. If you're fun, people want to talk to you. If you're just sticking to your script and going through the motions, it might work, right? It's a game of numbers sometimes, but it's not always. They're not the guy who's gonna, you're gonna call, or the girl. You're not the girl who they're gonna call if they're like, oh, okay, now business is done, let's go out for drinks, and you want to be that person.
this fun part, what happened to me in 2014, I went hitchhiking through the Balkans for a few months.
Nice.
And when I got back to Montreal, I think I was away for 5 months and a half that I was traveling, and I wasn't really working. I mean, I was putting some stuff, a few hours here and there, but it's hard when you're like on constantly moving and changing places and cities.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that I gave up on the business, but it slowed down significantly.
Mm-hmm.
However, when I came back, since I came back, I think it has been like the awesomest year in my like 8-year internet marketing career, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I took the time for me and I said, you know what, this is what matters. This is the ultimate goal of earning that money, or
Exactly.
It's not to have it in your bank account. It's to have experiences that the money will help you
exactly.
have, right?
It's not, money is not the end in and of itself. It's just a means to the end.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I know people in Montreal that, I know of one specific man that was, anyway, long story, but that man died a multimillionaire. Like, I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
8 figures probably.
Mm-hmm.
And he never left the city.
Wow.
He didn't go out. He didn't do anything. His main goal was to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, he died as like super rich guy. But because he was so busy trying to do every little thing for his business so he would not hire people and, he would make more money in the end, he didn't even have a time to make a child.
Mm.
So there you go. He made a whole bunch of money. He had never lived a life and he died super rich. What was the point of that,
Yeah, personally, I don't see it. You measure, I don't measure my success and I don't measure my riches in dollars and cents. I just don't. I measure it in connections. I measure it in impact. I measure it in friendships. I measure it in love. I measure it in inspiration, but I do not measure it in dollars and cents. And because of that, I get dollars and cents too. You know what I mean? Like, because I actually feel that way, and because I'm the first thing out of my mouth is not like, hey, pay me some cash for whatever. I don't know. It comes to you. Success comes to the people who are inspiring. Success comes to the people who are making a difference and impacting people. And so I focus on, how can I impact the world in a positive way? How can I impact people in a positive way? How can I be the person that when they walk into the room, they smile? How can I be that for the world? And if I'm that for the world, then everything else will come to me. What I need comes to me. And I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills every month. I really don't. And somehow it always happens, right? There's moments, like any entrepreneur is going to, anybody listening, you guys have that moment where like, oh shit, this bill's coming in, or my credit card went up a little bit this month and like really high or something. I don't know. I bought a new car or whatever. And then how am I going to pay for this? You know what I mean? And somehow, slowly but surely, it happens. It always works out, right? And it doesn't work out if you panic. It doesn't work out if you get away from what you do best. It doesn't work out if you aren't doing the thing that made people reach out to you in the first place. Or, you got to maintain the integrity of your character. And I choose that my character is a superhero. I choose that my character is to be, as pure-hearted as Mother Teresa. I choose that my character is to help people. I choose that my character is to never forget about our planet and the environment. And I choose that my character is not to lead a business, but to lead a movement. And that's where I have found myself. That's where I've found my own purpose. And I feel like the fuel to the fire and the energy that comes from that allows me to achieve all the things that I now achieve.
Yeah, great stuff, man. Wow. I'm just thinking about everything you've just said, and I'm like, yeah, wow. Often we forget about those things.
100%.
And there's another part of the whole entrepreneurship that you would often read in, self-motivation books and self-help speakers and gurus. They always, not always, but often they mention this technique of how to make money or how to be successful,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
They say write down things that you want to achieve, as in experiences, as in friendships, and all those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you write down, and you write it down in like present tense. So you write, I am traveling to at least 3 different countries every year.
Yeah.
I drive this kind of a car.
Yeah.
Or
whatever it is.
Like, right? So you write all those things. It's like from that, you try to calculate how much money you would need to fulfill those experiences. And then you split it into the like day basis. So let's say you figure out that you need to make $250 per day in order to have this kind of life, this kind of experiences. And you go from there. And they said that your brain is wired in such a way that when you see the exact figures and you know the exact end goals, it's so much easier to reach. And like you said, somehow it just works out.
100%. Yeah.
And this is the whole point, that like just concentrating once again on like I want to be rich, it's useless.
Rich is be specific, exactly.
And it's not just specific, it's like saying I want to make $10 million. Yeah, that's not going to help you much. But if you write the exact experiences that you want to have, the exact goals you want to achieve, not necessarily monetary goals in your life, then it's so much easier, because you're not just working to work. You're working for a goal that you know will make your life better, and you know the exact specific way in which you will make it better, not just generally.
So you know the why.
Having money is fun, but
you know what you want, but more importantly, you know why you want it. And people are more inspired by why, right? Even if you're telling your story of your business, you got to start with why. You got to tell people why you do what you do. And that's what's important. And look, when I explained what I was doing earlier in this podcast, I didn't tell you exactly what I did right away. I told you why I did it first. Okay. And sometimes I spend a lot more time explaining that. But the reality is that people are inspired by why you do what you do. And then they want to wrap their heads around what you're doing and how they can be a part of it and how they can help and blah, blah, blah. And the other thing is, I think writing down what you want to do is the most important thing in the world. In fact, if you write it down, you are 42% more likely to achieve it. 42% more likely to achieve your dream. Okay, so isn't that freaking crazy? Isn't that that's absolutely absurd? If you told me anything, I'm like, hey, Mark, here's the one thing you can do that will make you 42% more likely to succeed. Would you do it? Of course I would. Totally. Of course I would, right? So writing it down. Write it down. Literally write it down, and write it down not on some scrap piece of paper that's on, your to-do list for the day. Write it down in a sacred space. And so for me, what I did is I ended up writing down what I call an impossible list. And an impossible list is essentially, it's not a bucket list. It's a list of things that I thought would have been impossible in my life. Right. And not all of them are really truthfully impossible, in the sense that one of them is plant a million trees. One of them is build a sustainability learning center. One of them is become a scuba dive master. One of them. So they're not impossible. I mean, people have achieved these things. They're not all fly up into the sky with my flapping my arms. It's more of like an improbable list kind of thing, right? That if I don't put the time and energy and money and effort into it, then maybe it won't happen. But if I wrote it down, it now becomes a reference point for me to do. And I have all of these goals, and then I work towards all of them. And not all of them at the same time, but then sometimes I pick a vacation and I'm like, hey, I'm going to pick a vacation that has a really good dive spot, and I'm going to go and do my diver training. Or I'm going to I've always wanted to be a professional, or I want to be a rock climber, certified rock climber. So I go to the rock climbing gym, and then I pick a day, and I pick the day I'm going to get certified, and then I do it. So having written it down, it actually empowered me in all aspects of my life. So I sectioned my impossible list to have numerous different sections, like health, career, family, legacy, a huge legacy portion, adrenaline junkie. So I had all of these different sections, and I just wrote as much as I could possibly think of, and then I update it. So you can actually go to my website, superheroacademy.net/impossible-list, and you can see my own impossible list. And then I also update it with all the times, every time I complete something. And then if I complete something, sometimes I put right underneath it. Let's say one of my goals was to plant 1,000 trees. I've done that. or I've contributed to the planting of 1,000 trees, if not planted a whole bunch of them on my own. Then my next goal was, okay, now I don't want to plant 1,000,000 trees. You know what I mean? So that I just update the goals and it becomes a reference point for my life. Now, anybody who's out there who's listening, you guys can go to superheroacademy.net/impossible-list and you can make your own impossible list. I put a little form there to help you out and get you going a little bit, but you can also do it on your own wherever you are.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll put it in the show notes so people will have easier access to it. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so I have just a few more questions left for you. Yeah. One of them is I started asking this question recently, and it seems like the audience love it because we love hearing success stories and getting inspired by people who've achieved what we want to achieve, right? Yeah. But it's also important for us to hear that it's not all that easy. So I'd like to ask you to share one of the darkest moments or lowest points in your entrepreneurship career where you thought, it's not going to work out. Screw that. I'm going to go get a job.
Oh, yeah. I mean, now at this point, I never think I'm going to go get a job. But sometimes
at this point.
Yeah, at this point, yeah. But I never think that anymore. But that took years to get there. But here's the other thing. I never think I'm going to go get a job. Sometimes, however, what I think is I'm going to accept a job that I will still do as an entrepreneur, but that's not what I want to do, right? Like, so I'm going to accept like doing a website or filming a video for somebody because I can, and I've done it for years. But I don't want to do that anymore, right? I don't want to build websites for other people necessarily. So I still do with partners and different things and my own, Valhalla and all these things, but I don't necessarily want to do it for other people. So that kind of happens regularly. That's a struggle that kind of comes up pretty often. But I can say, going back to the indoor skate park, the first time it happened, so we took over the skate park. We took over about $300,000 worth of debt that we had. We had 3 years to pay off essentially, and it was a failing skate park. It was a skate park that literally was not paying its own bills. I was 18 years old, and our rent in the skate park was like $16,000 a month. And I was like, I don't even know how the hell we paid that, but we did. And
wow.
Let alone like hydro insurance. I say insurance at a skate park is pretty expensive. And hydro is a huge space. It was an 18,000 square foot indoor skate park with really bad insulation, and you had to heat the thing because it's Canadian winters. And it was just crazy. So we had an overhead of over 20 grand a month, not including salaries. And then we, were doing it. The first year I was also in school full time at McGill, okay, studying entrepreneurship and marketing. So this is not like I still had the option of going to get a job. You know what I mean? Like I was young. I was 18, 19. So, I was there and we did the first year. We had increased the price. We actually made a profit. And we're like, whoa, and we paid off like the debt and more debt than we expected. And then right as that was happening, I also built the business plan to build this lounge, right? Because the reason I bought the skate park was not just for the skate park. It's because I actually wanted to build that space, that apartment building. I wanted to build that lounge, that place where my friends and I didn't have to wait in coat check lines or in lines that are artificially created like at Foofs and to be like get in and the club is empty and pay overpriced and have to yell to talk to your friends, and I didn't like it. So and also have food, a better, cheaper, but not cheaper, but better food than McDonald's available where I lived. And so my goal was to build this lounge, and I had built a business plan, and I walked into the bank, and the bank had pre-approved the loan. They literally approved my business plan. I was like, yes, for a $250,000 loan. And as I was going to the bank to continue and file the papers and get the money, literally get it like transferred into our account so I can use it. As that happened, the financial crisis hit. Mm-hmm. And it devastated the entire banking, in the world, essentially. But it also revoked my loan. They also literally said no to my loan, even though they had approved it.
Oh.
And I went down a spiral of going to all the different major banks in Canada. I went to VCs, angels. I went for applying for like young entrepreneurship grants and loans and everything. Nothing worked. And I really wanted to give up. I really wanted to be like, this doesn't make sense. And like we were already paying the rent. The lounge was going to be built in the skate park in the mezzanine. It was a 7,000 square foot mezzanine. We already were covering the bills. And even though the financial crisis hit, we were still paying the bills. I mean, it was tougher, maybe, but we were still paying the bills. And so I didn't understand. Like, it's like, okay, yes, it's risky, but it wasn't as risky as a new startup. We were building this in an established business with an established clientele. So, and I was going to bring more clientele because we were going to offer more services. And this was, I don't know, let's not go there. But the reality is they were stupid. Because it's crazy because numerous bars opened up soon after in the last couple of years, and all of them made millions at this point. So anyway, but point being that they were stupid, but I was frustrated, and I really wanted to give up. I really wanted to maybe sell the skate park and just continue school and get a job and do my thing. And what I decided to do instead was. I made some silly moves and I tried to make money in all kinds of crazy ways. But one of the other things that I ended up doing, and I realized is that out of this darkness came the most important realization of my life, which is that money isn't the end, it's a means to the end.
Yeah.
That what really business was not about money so that I can get money to buy what you have and you can get money to buy what I have. It was really about the win-win scenario. It was really about what did you really want? And why did you really want it? And how was that a win for you? And what did I really want? And why did I really want it? And how was it a win for me? And if I can create win-win scenarios, then in fact, I can completely circumvent the entire money exchange element of it. Okay, so for example, I needed kitchen equipment for the lounge. So I went on Craigslist and I looked around for kitchen equipment, which in the financial crisis, restaurants are closing left, right, and center. And I found it. Yeah. The difference is I didn't have the money. But they had the need of selling their kitchen equipment. So what I did is I found somebody who was willing to buy kitchen equipment and buys old kitchen equipment and sells it for more expensive later, kind of thing. Yeah. Because they basically essentially take advantage of failed restaurants. And I went up to them and I said, look, I'm going to get you a guy. He quotes fairly. And I'm gonna sell your equipment more so than you're gonna sell it one by one. And in the next 2 weeks, because the bank is about to close on your business and shut the door on you, and your landlord's about to kick you out, I'm gonna bring in the guy. He'll buy all the equipment, but because I brought him to you, I want the microwave, or because I brought him to you, I want that stovetop, or because I brought him to you, I want the all these pans and dishes.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea, man.
Yeah, so I did that over and over and over again. And I actually became an expert at Craigslist. I literally was creating win-win scenarios between failed restaurants, equipment purchaser and reseller, and myself, bridging the gap, connecting the dots between the two, and in exchange, taking a small piece of equipment for the future lounge. And slowly but surely, I literally got every single piece of equipment that I needed to build the kitchen with $0.00. Only my time. Right? Only my effort in understanding and realizing that what was of value here was what was actually happening. What was of value is that I brought value to the equation and as a middleman, but a real value. And that value created a win-win scenario for all the parties involved. So my entire business philosophy now, everything that I do is always focused on, in any partnership or anything I've ever done, is always focused on what is the win that they want and what is the win that I want. And does this have to involve money, or is there a better way of doing it? And sometimes, even if it does involve money, that's what I need to propose. That's what I need to offer, right? I need to offer win-wins, and those win-wins lead to close deals, or to deals that manifest themselves. So that was the most profound thing that I ever had learned, and it came out of the darkest period, essentially, of my, I want to quit moment. And it was a blessing in disguise, right? The fact that I never got that loan actually was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
That is a really awesome story just because of that. Like, the moment where most people would quit, you actually took it as a learning experience and you've turned it into something a lot better. This is truly inspiring and amazing, man.
Thank you.
So thanks for sharing that, Marc. And another piece of advice that I would ask you for the listeners is your most important tip for any beginner entrepreneur, regardless of what they do or what they want to do. what is that most important advice that you could give them?
So the most important advice is advice that I got while growing up, and my father would always tell me this, and I remember it very clearly. At one point, I had a hugely shitty attitude for certain things, and I was just a spoiled brat at times, like anybody. And he told me that attitude is everything. And what at the time, it was about just me not wanting to literally not wanting to almost go to Disney World kind of thing. I was like, I don't want to go to this fun event that it was literally an alligator farm. Okay. We were in Florida. I didn't want to go to the alligator farm to see people. I didn't want to see the alligators. Like, I was such a spoiled brat. And my dad told me, attitude is everything. Like, you can have the shitty attitude and you're just going to pout all day, but we're going. And whether or not you want to go or not, you can choose to be angry, or you can choose to have fun. And in fact, when we got there, I had the most fun. I literally loved the alligator farm. Like, I was like, this is the greatest place of all time. And so I had the most fun, and I realized the power of what my dad had told me, which is control your attitude. And at the time, I didn't actually have the full cognitive ability to control my attitude. I was just a kid, but now I do, and now you do. Every day you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to present yourself as who you are, or who you want to be. You have the opportunity to tell your story and introduce yourself to the people, and you could say, hey, even if you still have your 9 to 5 and you're trying to break into entrepreneurship, you can choose to say, hey, what I do for a living is my 9 to 5, or you could say, what I do for my living is whatever business you want to start, or whatever title you want to give yourself. I give myself the title of superhero engineer. Why? Because I give myself the title. I have that opportunity every single day. That's my title. So, and I get to choose that. So that's one thing.
That is a really awesome title, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I love it. But what a dream title, right? But so that's number one. Number two is you have the opportunity, no matter what is coming your way, to do one of two things. You can react to it. So you can react to, the government being corrupt and protest. You can react to a client saying no and not taking your offer. You can react to an unexpected bill or getting pulled over by a cop and be angry. Or instead, you can choose to act with your attitude and use your attitude to actually make a more positive change towards the situation and control what you can control. Don't focus on the externalities. I can't control the fact that the cop pulled me over. What I can control is I'm going to treat him with total respect when he comes to my window, and because I was speeding, or I did do a shitty stop, and instead of treating him like a asshole, I'm going to choose to give my attitude and ask him a good question, or be like, "Hey, how's your day going? Yeah, you caught me," and make a joke. And half the time, I walk away without the ticket.
Nice.
Okay, only because I acted that way. But guess what? If I didn't act that way and I treat him like an asshole, there's no way 100% of the time I'm walking away with the ticket. In fact, I might even walk away with my car towed if I go too far. Okay. So I might be literally walking away. Okay. So do you understand that your attitude is everything?
Yeah.
Your attitude shapes your reality. Happiness is not a destination. It's a way of travel. So you choose how you travel. You choose how you go and navigate this life. And you can't control the seas. You can't control what's going to happen. You can't control the storms. Okay. But what you can control is your attitude in the situation, your calmness in the situation, and your ability to navigate your ship. And if you get angry, and if you approach life with a negative attitude, guess what? You're going to have a negative time. And if you approach life with a positive attitude, you're going to have a positive time. There is something beautiful in every situation, every single situation, literally every single situation. There is something beautiful. So if you can see that, and if you can maintain that focus on and realize that the one thing I need to control in my life, and the one thing that was going to make me more money than anything else in the world, is going to be my attitude. Walk into a business, walk in front of a client or try and make a sale with a frown on your face. Walk in front of a client, try and make the exact same sale with a lot more enthusiasm and a smile on your face. And you tell me what's going to work. You could say the exact same words, the exact same pitch. You can be wearing the exact same clothes. It doesn't, all that other stuff matters so much less than your smile. Your attitude is everything.
Amazing advice, man. Thank you so much for sharing it. And yeah, I totally agree that attitude is a game changer for many of us in many different situations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much, man. And Mark, what if people want to reach you or find out more about you and what you do? Where can they find that information?
Absolutely. So if you want to hear more about Superhero Academy and you're interested and you need help with what you're doing, you can reach out directly via superheroacademy.net. There's tons of information, resources there. Some of these pre-recorded online classes are going to be there. I'm also going to be doing a free weekly class every week on different topics. So you guys are invited at any point. It's going to be, you have to pre-register, but that's about it. And so there's that. And you can reach out to me. I'm pretty reachable on Facebook and all these other places as well. I answer every single email that I get. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer than expected, but I answer every single Valhalla email as well. So if you're interested in the Valhalla Movement, Sustainability Learning Center, all that stuff, you can also reach out via Valhalla and go and check out ValhallaMovement.com, VALHALLA movement.com. So yeah, those are probably the two best places. And then my marketing company and all that kind of stuff. At this point, it's merged into the Valhalla agency. So you can go to agency.valhallamovement.com and you can hear, or you can, I guess, reach out to us about whether or not we can help you with some marketing or your social enterprise. But you can also just reach out to me via any social media platform, and we can talk about any and all of those things.
Great, Mark. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I had a blast, and thank you for sharing all your knowledge, experience, and tips.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you for doing all the things that you're doing and taking your time to put this out there and inspire the people that are listening and inspire the people that will be listening.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Extra Paycheck Podcast. To find all the resources, links, and other information we talked about in today's episode, simply go to my show notes page at extrapodcast.com/11. Also, I would like to thank you for keeping those reviews and ratings coming through the iTunes store. This really helps me a lot and it helps the show as well. I'll see you next Monday.